Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast. This is episode 47. On this week's podcast, I chat with Arsenal's Richard Clarke to discuss content they produce to engage Arsenal fans around the world.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who has trained Olympians on social media, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, at Sean Callanan on Twitter, and you're listening to the Sports Geek podcast. This is episode 47. Thank you very much for downloading it either in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. On today's podcast, I chat with a good mate of mine who's been on the podcast before as a guest on ABC Grandstand with Francis Leach. I was lucky enough to catch up with him at Emirates Stadium. He's Richard Clarke from Arsenal, and have a bit of a chat about what they try to do as the Arsenal Media Group, producing digital content to engage with fans all around the world, because there are fans from Arsenal all around the world, and I now count myself as one of them after going to Emirates Stadium. I had recorded this intro and nearly had this podcast up, but given the events of the last 24 hours, I decided to re-record this and have a little bit of an FA Cup final flavour. Congratulations to Arsenal winning 3-2 against Hull City. Very, very jealous of a good mate of mine from the Adelaide Crows, Dave Burtonshaw, who was lucky enough to get a flight over there and be at the game. Well done to Dave, and happy birthday. What a tremendous gift to get there for your birthday, to see that win. But first, here is my chat with Richard Clarke from Arsenal on how they go about engaging Arsenal fans around the world. So here we are in London and at Arsenal. I'm very happy to chat with former guest of the podcast, but here I am in his hometown, Richard Clarke. Welcome to the podcast again.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
So again, can I just get you to, what is your title here at Arsenal?
My title is the managing editor for something called the Arsenal Media Group, which is effectively the digital arm of the club.
And so we've just gone through a bit of a tour. Do you want to, and a big part of that is the stuff that you do from a video point of view. Do you just want to take me through those two, the two shows you do, the 360 and the other one was
Arsenal World.
Arsenal World, that's right.
Yeah, we have an international program block, as a lot of clubs have, and it was a 3-hour content which for us goes out to a lot of broadcasters around the world. That's 3 hours of content. About 2 hours of it is games, and the final hour is for us. It's 2 digest shows, 2 magazine shows. One called Arsenal World, one called Arsenal 360. And that forms, not all, but a lot of our content on the website. In terms of the magazine features within those shows are taken out and put on the website after, or increasingly Facebook and YouTube and other places like that as well, after the show has been aired.
Yep.
Around that, we support it with the more urgent stuff, which goes directly to the website. For example, the pre-match interviews, post-match interviews, the press conferences. We produce our highlights ourselves. We've got our own commentary teams all over the place. It's a big operation on a match day. So that sort of, in a nutshell, is our video.
Yeah, and then you do break it down, and like you just said, you put it to your newly minted YouTube channel, and then also through the Arsenal Player. Where do you find, you've just started the YouTube channel, where do you find your fans are consuming your content the most?
It's hard to tell at the moment because it is brand new out of the packet.
Yeah.
We had a YouTube channel for our tour, our Asia tour last year, which went down very, very well, and Running Man came out of that. And if you look at our stats, they're a little bit Vietnam skewed because of that, because he came from Vietnam and that was done in the middle of Hanoi. So it's hard to tell as it stands at the moment. We're hoping in the weeks and months and years to come that we'll get more of a picture on it.
And the idea from a YouTube point of view, it is eventually to put it on a platform that is exceptionally viral, easy to share, and then bring them back into the Arsenal environment, get them to sign up, start using the Arsenal player because there's going to be more material in that space?
Yeah, we want the best experience of the game itself to be an Arsenal player, and we'll be developing that over the next few months to make sure that is. It would be more than months, but to make sure that is the best experience to watch the games in a catch-up version. Obviously, you know, when we don't have the rights to show games live, but we do produce a 3-hour matchday show every game. And in pre-season, the rights are different, so sometimes we can screen those on delay, or sometimes we can get them live. But you know, what we try and do is produce 3 edits of the game as soon as we can, as soon as the rights allow us to. So we do a 2-minute, a 12-minute, and a 90-minute. And we hope that provides great value for digital members.
Yep.
You know, it's all free.
Yep.
All you got to do is just give us some details. It's a registration job,
yep.
as it were.
Yep.
But you know, we're trying to reach and engage with our fans, you know, via whatever method, via Facebook and YouTube, but all the time the best experience to watch Arsenal games, we hope, we believe, and we
yep.
want, is on Arsenal player.
And yeah, and that's what you're saying before, that it is the driver. It's a big data play to get people to sign up, and then you can start having that conversation with the fans. And so does that lead into, you know, CRM and your email marketing and that side of things?
Well, that's wider than me. I'm doing the content bit. So you know, you probably need to speak to other people at the club with regard to that, because you know, but yes, we're gaining data from digital membership, but you know, my bit is to make sure the content's good and to get people engaging with Arsenal player and enjoying it and giving them value that way.
And so you're effectively in content marketing, because you're pushing out all this content that are marketing the club. What have you found? What platforms are working best for Arsenal from a social point of view to drive that traffic or to drive engagement around the Arsenal brand?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you call it marketing. We've got a different department which is marketing, but
yep.
but certainly, you know, back in the day, 20 years ago, I started off as a journalist, and you know, my old sports editor used to say journalists don't make stories, they sell them.
Yep.
Which is kind of effective what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you're not there to make it. You're there to package it up and make it look good and get people to enjoy it in whatever form. And you know, we try and do that across all of our platforms. Now, going back to your question over what works for us, you know, I think we're doing very well on. I like to think we're doing well on Instagram. Yep. At the moment, that we put a lot of video through that, which is interesting. Obviously, got the pictures, and we're trying to do 2 a day, and we're trying to engage with people, and I'm very happy with the level of comments that we get back and the level of likes that we get back,
because it is a pure engagement space, because it's not driving traffic back. It's not like, you know, we would love Instagram to put a link back to say watch the full version of this video back in the player, but it's a pure engagement play for the, you know, with the fans.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, that's what I kind of think my job is in many ways is to create Arsenal fans around the world. Yep. That we think about fans outside of the UK. You know, I grew up an Arsenal fan. I went to my first game before I went to school. Yep. And my first job was I used to go with my dad and write reports on Arsenal games at the age of 10. I used to go. I'd got a toy typewriter from Woolworths for a Christmas present. I used to go to games with my dad, go back and write the reports on games. So I've been an Arsenal fan, dyed in the wool, and you know, I do that now for a living, so I'm the luckiest guy in the world. But that's within the UK. Outside, you know, it's those it's important to engage with fans and make them love the club as much as someone as myself does. And I think that's about creating, you know, great content and showing and displaying and articulating the great stories of our football club, because we are one of the great football clubs in the world, in my opinion, the greatest, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's fine. My good friend and Francis Leach would completely agree with you. He's a massive Arsenal man.
Francis is a man of good taste and breeding. I found that out when he came here, and yes, he's an Arsenal man. And I could always tell that during the podcast that he had that sort of polish about him as an Arsenal man.
Exactly. So we got off on a tangent there. So Facebook, how is Arsenal finding Facebook? Like what we're seeing is the edge rank changes sort of around Christmas last year. Vastly changed the way we've been doing it, and the numbers, all the teams that we're working with, all the numbers have increased from a like point of view in this first 3 months. What's it been like, with the huge numbers you guys have?
We've been growing well on Facebook. We've been quite happy with that. We've had a concerted push in putting exclusive content out on there. We've done Facebook Final Whistle, which is a piece of content where we're going to player in after the game, and it'll be a specially branded set in conjunction with Facebook, which it's kind of specific content, and we call a call to action for questions via Facebook, and it's exclusive to Facebook.
And it's a native video, so you're uploading it as Facebook native video, and that's what we're seeing. That previously people will be putting up YouTube clips, and YouTube clips seem to be getting smaller and smaller every time. Obviously, if Facebook is trying to push its own promotion, we would like them to give us better analytics, or at least some analytics on those videos and plays. But the fact is, doing that video, the fans have just the reaction to that so far.
They've loved it. And obviously, I think Facebook like it as well, from what we gather, because it's a piece of content purely on their platform. And what we're trying to do is create value on all of those platforms to tell the story of the club, but always at the centre of it is Arsenal player is the home of the game. Yep. It's kind of like putting that story out there, saying, look, you like us, you enjoy us, you think we're cool, you should see us play football. Yeah. Here's where you come.
Because everyone, good best practice says you don't go and post 8 times a day on Facebook. So you do it a couple of times a year, you keep it restricted, you keep it to your best stuff, and the fans who want more, they'll go to the website. So are you still seeing really steady traffic from Facebook? From when you put something up, it drives people there, and then it's your job to one, keep them there, recommend them other stories, and increase time on site?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that's the overall plan, like it is for everybody. I mean, if you look at, for example, we do a lot of work with the one I've pushed this year, the new platform that I pushed this year is SoundCloud.
Yep.
And what's really interesting is SoundCloud I like, just because I think it blends well with the content we do, because we do a live commentary show for every game. We do 3 hours every game. So and we capture that audio, and we will create a little audio file, maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds long.
Of the goal highlights.
Of the goals, yeah. And we embed that into a Facebook post. And recently, the plays of that has been ending up at the 100,000, 80,000, 60,000.
Well, because it's in that short snippet, you can easily consume it, and it's the best part of the game.
Yes.
And what I love about SoundCloud, and you tipped me into SoundCloud and said put the podcast on SoundCloud, is that it does have that social nature. It does have, I will follow, I will star, I will retweet. But the best bit, and when you look at your highlights, is all the commentary of the fans going, that's the favourite bit, or here's my and so it's very viral in nature. You can put it on a Facebook post and it plays in line. You put it in Twitter and it plays in line. And it, me being you're an iPhone guy, but I'm an Android guy now. SoundCloud is sort of the, it's the closest thing to iTunes there is. So that whole Android market, if you've got Android, you would be on, you would get SoundCloud. So to me, it's an up and comer in that space. And not many people see it as a social network, but I see it in that same space that, Vine is this video social network, but really it's just Twitter's video player. It's not quite social.
Yeah. I mean, people don't see YouTube as a social network.
Yeah.
They see it as a video playing service. Well, we've obviously created our YouTube chat channel, but we've appointed someone to run that, who very much sees the community side of it as crucially important, and I do too. So all these are social networks because everything's social. If you can interact with it, it's social.
Well, the thing with YouTube, that the big change they made, and I think for the better, especially for Google Plus, is that made all the comments on YouTube real people, and that could be the saving grace for Google Plus. If people have to comment on a video and they're doing it via their the Google Plus profile, and then it comes up on their wall that I've commented on an Arsenal video, and then Francis sees it and he'll comment in, or I'll share it on. Like, that might be something that really starts driving YouTube's growth, but more so people going into Google Plus. which seems to be still a little bit of a ghost town. Like you put something up and there's no one there. So I don't know.
We've done a couple of Google Hangouts, and we're looking at. We don't. Yeah, it's difficult to know where you'll go with it, really. As it does with all of them, really. We've done we've got a great relationship with most of the social platforms. Yeah, particularly with the Facebook guys who we work with very closely, and we did over Facebook Final Whistle. It's difficult. It's difficult to know where to go with. It's difficult to predict the way they develop.
Yeah, and it does come down to your content. So, you know, when people are saying what should we do on Google+, Google Hangout is a terrific product.
I mean that, and it is. For example, we did a Google Hangout with Jack Wilshere, and we connected 5 continents. Now, if we did something with Facebook, we'd get more viewership.
Yep.
But it might not connect the 5 continents in that way. So sometimes you're making a choice over where you go over the idea, and sometimes the platform you think, well, that will work well on that particular.
And I think the main thing that Google Plus and I see Google Hangouts as a YouTube product really, because a lot of teams will use it. They'll take the embed code, and it's great because you can put it back on your site and say, come watch the Hangout. It's at arsenal.com/hangout. And that's where all the fans go. You're getting the traffic, you're ticking all the boxes, and it's a great product in that sense. So I expect more teams to be using it just because it's a live streaming video interview platform right out of the box. So sort of wrap up, and I don't want to keep you too long. What are some of the goals that you have that are overarching for your team?
Well, we're looking to reach and engage as many people as we can, and I'm looking to grow, as I've said before, our social numbers with a view to bringing people back into play and make that a very positive experience. That's kind of the centre of our universe in many ways, as you would expect. I'm also looking to take on a new. I take on a new social platform each year. 2 years ago it was Instagram. Last year it was SoundCloud. And I'm pleased with the way that they've gone. They're both kind of 650,000, which puts us, high up in that kind of level. We'll look to take on another one next year. Don't know where that is.
You haven't decided yet.
What do you think, Sean? If you were me, what would you do? I'll ask you a question.
Okay, you're asking me a question. All the buzz would be Snapchat. But
I've listened to the podcast, and
I don't believe it provides the virality that you need to do it. And it's a little bit of you're providing that inner sanctum experience and all that kind of stuff, but because it can't be shared and can't be. I mean, I know they've got Snapchat stories and it can be, but it doesn't have that viral nature of a Twitter. I mean, if you were going to ask me, and I haven't been a big convert to Vine. But in the States, that has been growing and growing. And I just pretty much see it as Twitter's native video player.
Yeah.
I think they should have, when they bought it, I thought they should have just put it straight into Twitter. So when you went up and then I'm recording a video, it's a Vine. It might end up there, but if you look at guys like, and after I spoke to Josh at the Dodgers, they do a lot of Vines, super slow-mos of Clayton Kershaw, throwing and warming up in the bullpen, all of that kind of stuff. It's easy to digest, and it's viewable in Twitter. But they're actually getting lots of. I think it might be a US thing, but they're getting lots of views. And there's Viners like there is YouTubers stars in the States. So, I think that's potentially got some legs if you were to say this is what we're going to do. If I was going to bet on a horse, I'd bet on Vine before I'd bet on Snapchat.
Yeah, it's interesting because
the other one that you could, which some of the teams are doing, is Tumblr.
Yeah.
But what we've found, and talking to guys who have done it well and sort of lead the space, so guys like the Portland Trailblazers and stuff like that, and they got put on the recommended for sports, so they got a whole bunch of followers, is that it's a bit like Pinterest in that there's a lot of people reblogging stuff and liking stuff, but it's not driving any traffic. So there's a lot of excitement, and that might be the demographic. It might just be teenage kids that just want to repurpose it, but they're not actually getting all that excitement for something that goes super viral. Doesn't end up people reading an article or subscribing. So again, they're probably the ones that you could hit up. But I found Tumblr, like I like Tumblr, but it's a very hard place to find your fans. Like there's not a, you go and launch on Tumblr and you could say, Arsenal's on Tumblr, and there'd be people like, but if you just put it on Tumblr, how does anyone know it's there? Which is the tough one. So they're probably the three that you've got to look at and think about.
Yeah, it is interesting because they've crossed my mind. Obviously, Snapchat. Everyone's talking about Snapchat, but you want a reason for doing it rather than it's cool and everyone's doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to go a lot deeper than that.
It's exactly the same messages with drugs. Don't just do it because everyone else is doing it. But I'm not convinced with Snapchat as yet. So, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to catching up with a few of the teams that are doing it. But yeah, if as the person who's running it, we're getting great feedback, but you're getting great feedback from so little people, and that's the thing. You don't want to go and do something that serves a really small fan base. You're looking at big fan bases. So for something to scale, that's something you've got to look at. Well, thank you very much for showing me around, and thank you very much for coming on the podcast again. And look forward to catching up with you maybe in Australia sometime, or maybe even in the US.
Thank you very much for your time, Sean, and you're always welcome back. And Francis is too.
Cheers, mate.
Need help with your content? Book in for a content brainstorming session with Sports Geek now. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/work.
Thanks again to Rich Clarke from Arsenal. What are your thoughts? What social media platform should Arsenal tackle next? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think it should be Snapchat and reach those young teens and using those type of platforms? One of the things I have seen a lot of, especially in Europe, is a lot of brands using WhatsApp as a way to communicate. WhatsApp's got a really high penetration in Europe, and you can actually see music video shows asking for people to WhatsApp their comments in on the videos they're watching rather than using Twitter. So it just does depend on what type of audience you're trying to get to. For mine, I don't think Snapchat is the right one for a team like Arsenal, but it'll be interesting to see which one that they tackle. One big success that Richard did mention in our chat is SoundCloud. And he was one of the main reasons of putting the Sports Geek podcast up on SoundCloud. I think it's a really great platform for those short grabs, also additional podcasts, media interviews, those kind of things. But this week, especially with the FA Cup final, I'm going to combine sounds of the game and social media post of the week this week with Richard himself calling the game in the Arsenal player, so the match day crew calling the game. And I was actually listening to this audio because I was watching the game in Italy. Only had the Italian feed, only had the Italian commentators, and I'd like to know what was happening in the game. So I was watching the game but listening to it on the Arsenal player, and very good to hear Richard calling the win and calling the goal. So here is a snippet from the Arsenal SoundCloud, official Arsenal SoundCloud account, recapping that last goal.
Here is Arteta. Now it's with Wilshere through towards Sanogo inside the penalty area. Mindful for Giroud. Giroud the back heel and the shot! Yes! From Aaron Ramsey! Fantastic goal from Arsenal in the second period of extra time. Some brilliant build-up play, and Ramsey has put Arsenal 3-2 up here from 2-0 down after 10 minutes. They're going to somehow have pulled it around, and surely the cup is heading to North London.
Congrats again to Richard and everybody at Arsenal. You can hear it in Richard's voice. That's one of the reasons we love working in sport, for moments like those and for moments to be able to really allow us to engage those fans. That post on Facebook alone, over 80,000 likes. The SoundCloud clip, because it's immediately playable in the Facebook feed, over 200 plays at time of recording. So it really shows how Arsenal have really put their efforts behind SoundCloud for this year, and really winning with that and providing content that fans can't help but like, post, comment and share. One of the things I have been doing over the Sports Geek trip with a lot of travel, train rides, airports, those kind of things. It's been catching up on a few podcasts, listening to a few different podcasts to keep myself up to date. But I also revisited a podcast that I did recently on Beers, Blokes and Business with Will Anderson. I know I've given this a plug previously, but I think this grab that I've got here really does tie in well with what Richard was talking about around engaging fans. And Will actually used this similar story at the Twitter Brekkie that we held in 2012, where he talked about his effectively social media strategy. So this to me is Will Anderson talking about his fan engagement strategy and how he sees his fan base. And I think it very much applies to any sporting club, whether it be a small sporting club or a large one like Arsenal. So this is a small grab from Beers, Blokes and Business with Australian comedian Will Anderson.
I have that real attitude of, and I mean, it doesn't work, it's not applicable for every business, obviously, but for what I do, there's this amazing comedian called Stuart Lee, and he always talks about, he just simplifies it for people, which is 2,000 super fans. He said, if you're a stand-up comedian, you're starting out, and he said, and he's UK, so he's like, if they'll each spend 50 quid a year on you, right? Like, if someone's a super fan of yours, minimum. Like, tickets to my show are $50, you know what I mean? Like, and people buy a t-shirt or, like, you know, whatever else, or, like, you know, come to the podcast or whatever. But, like, let's just say for minimum, 50 quid a year, or even $50 a year, right? You got 2,000 people who are going to spend $50 a year and you're a stand-up comedian. That's $100,000 just from your core group before you have to even start thinking. That's 2,000 people, right? So for me, it's always been about trying to first and foremost service the audience that already supports you and then go outwards from that, rather than being like, you know, a broad sort of, like, I always just think you grow and grow from that. Here's my base, here's my core, look after them first and foremost, and then grow outwards from that.
You actually should include a link in the podcast to the Kevin Kelly 1,000 True Fans. There was a tech article that was written about 10 years ago, which I reckon might be where that comes from. It's the same idea.
Seat 2014. See you in Miami in July.
Thanks again to Will Anderson for being a guest on the Beers, Blokes, Business podcast. You can download that episode at beersblokesbusiness.com/36. You can actually get to beersblokesbusiness.com on iTunes by just simply putting /iTunes at the end of that. Give Will Anderson a follow. Will with 1L _Anderson. I'll put links in the show notes on Twitter. And for my listeners in the US, if you listen to the episode, he's actually trying to crack the US market and working in a lot of cities where a lot of professional teams are, and a lot of my friends are. A few of them have already told you when he's in town, but keep an eye out when he does visit your city. He's a very funny man. But have a listen to the podcast. Really some great insights on the world of business from a comedy point of view, career planning, and a whole bunch of other things. Really smart bloke. Also there, you heard the ad, or a little snippet there for Seat 2014. I really want to see as many of the listeners of the Sports Geek podcasts at Seat 2014. You do hear me talk about the Seat conference quite a bit on this podcast. A lot of my guests are either Seat attendees or Seat committee members or both. And a lot of them will be attending and be in attendance in Miami at the Fontainebleau hotel. Christine Stoffel from Seat has done an amazing job putting on a terrific conference. The difference with Seat is the agenda is driven by the Seat committee members. So I'm very proud to be the chairman of the digital track and work with some very smart people, smarter than myself, on developing what the topics and the discussions will be at the conference. So many of the guests that you've heard on this podcast, Dwayne Hankins from the Portland Trailblazers, Kenton Olsen from the Seattle Seahawks, Oscar Ugaz is going to come all the way from France, formerly from Real Madrid, Todd Kafflish from the Red Wings, Kevin and Kenny from the Golden State Warriors. I can't go through and name everybody who is going to be in attendance because I will be here all day. But needless to say, every pro league in the US is going to be represented, NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, Major League Soccer. There's going to be a growing audience of sports practitioners from a CRM point of view, digital and IT, also from the NCAA. So if you're working in CRM and digital and IT, which every single person listening to this podcast is, if your team is doing those things, which every single professional team is doing, then this is the one conference you must attend. I absolutely love going to it. I love the content that comes out of it. For me, it's as much professional development for me as it is a networking opportunity and get to catch up with a few of my mates and have a beer. So I'm looking forward to catching up with all of those people. Hopefully a few more international attendees will be there. As I said, Oscar Hugas is coming from France. Hope to see Jesper Nyland from Denmark again, potentially Tinus LaRue, who came all the way from South Africa. Al Webster, who came from ANZ Stadium in Australia. So I'd like to see more international attendees. And to that end, I need your help with my presentation and what I want to showcase at SEAT, and that is all about the best content in sports. Now, I've got a stack of examples that I can use that I will be presenting, but I really want to hear what you think is the best practice and what content you think has worked really well. And it might be a team that you follow because you're a fan of that team, or it might be your team. It might be you developing this content and say, this really worked and we killed it for without fans, whether it be a specific content piece, a campaign you did with sponsors, a specific piece that was pure fan engagement, like Richard did with SoundCloud, just purely engaging the fans and giving them what they want. Simply send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I will be hitting up a bunch of you for your best and brightest over the next couple of weeks as I put together some of the things that I'll be sharing, hopefully put together a little bit of an ebook as well as part of SEAT 2014. So please, if you haven't registered already, please do. If you're coming from internationally, please contact me. Ask me anything regarding SEAT. I'm more than happy to put in a good word with your boss to get you there. Christine does an amazing amount of work to get the conference up and running, and everyone comes away with it completely inspired for the rest of the year. So that's it. That was my final plug for the episode. Again, you can get all these episodes on iTunes. Thank you very much for the iTunes reviews that you leave. You can leave them at sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. You can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/SGP guests and connect with all the guests that have been on the podcast so far. 47 episodes, over 50 guests. And you can go back and check all the old episodes at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP episodes. And please tell your mates about Sports Geek Podcast to let it grow, either on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and even Windows Phone. And it brings me to note that just last week I passed 1 year of podcasting, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that I was able to pump out 46 episodes of Sports Geek Podcast in my first year of podcasting. And if you tally it up with the Beers Blokes Business podcast as well, that's a total of 86 for the first year. So very happy with the results so far. That sound is my closing 2 cents, and I'm going to leave you with this. Like both Will Anderson and Richard Clarke said, commit to your core audience first, and the rest will grow.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Want to maximize returns from your digital team? Contact Sports Geek about content and commercialization workshop. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.